Hey guys, welcome to The Cutting Edge, where culture meets crypto. Today we have a digital artist in music, fashion, and tech. He will be following up his previous record-breaking drops, Destination Hexagonia and Infinite Future, with Hexhibit III. It's the biggest physical NFT being auctioned off at Sotheby's in November. I want you to please help me in giving a warm welcome to fellow futurist Don Diablo. Don, how are you?
Hey, brother. I'm very good. It's 1:00 at night out here in Amsterdam.
Thank you for taking the time. You know, I know how hard it is operating on U.S. hours from Central European time.
I actually just came from. I just did a run in America, so I just went to Boston, Miami, and Chicago. I just came back last night, so I'm kind of still a little bit on the American clock.
Oh, okay. All right, good. That's awesome to hear. You know, and it's awesome to hear that you're touring again. You know, I was listening to some of your live sets on SoundCloud this week in order to prepare for this, and one of the things that I found that was really awesome and interesting was in one of the sets, and maybe in a couple because I was listening to them a couple times over, was you played "This Is How We Do It" by Montel Jordan, which I'm definitely dating myself here. That song was actually the first song I think I was like 11 or 12 years old when it came out. I wrote down all the lyrics to the song, and I learned that song by heart. So it's always awesome.
It's classic.
To hear that kind of nostalgic music mixed with the modern day like techno movement and stuff. So I
think music is one of those things that just basically. It combines, it brings together all different scenes, whether it's film and tech or music and whatever, is out there, arts. We all have those songs, we all have guilty pleasures as well. And I think, and that's really the one thing that I love about making music and playing music. But yeah, it's always been my hobby, and I will definitely do it the rest of my life.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I know we've spoken before, and one of the things that came up that I think is really interesting is like you're definitely known first, I think, to the wider audience as a DJ, but you consider yourself an artist and a creative in every aspect. And I think that that's super interesting too, especially as we're entering into this brave new world of crypto, right? And how that, I guess, transition has been for you with regards to how you're viewed in the space and how you've been working with the space.
Well, I mean, I don't really consider myself anything, to be honest. It's more, I just do stuff. You know, that's basically, I've always done that my whole life, and I think, I think music was the first thing that kind of popped off for me. But even that took like about 20 years for me to get to the level where I am now, I guess. And I actually started out in film, and you know, from there I started editing, filming. You know, when I was 14, I had a green screen in my bedroom, and I had a chroma key set up and everything. And video was my first passion. Then I started, you know, experimenting with digital visuals, and from there on, it's like, hey, making music could be cool to add to these visuals. And then, I guess I ended up becoming a musician, I guess, for the outside world. But I've always, you know, been sewing my own clothes and making, you know, different art pieces to use for my own house or for friends. Or I think I just never really, I think like a lot of guys in the space, we never really thought about selling them, I guess, or as an art piece. I don't know, like a lot of people have been photographers, they've been taking pictures, but they never considered selling them as art. And I think even if you look at someone like Beeple, right, he's been sharing his creations for free on his Instagram for years, and now they're being sold as, you know, fine art pieces. I think it's really a sign of the times. And I think there's like, you know, like hybrid artists are now emerging, right? I think a lot of digital or like visual artists actually are pretty good at making music as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that, because I feel like there's been this massive crossover, right? Of like, you know, people that we generally consider musicians, that it's like, hey, you know, it's like, guess what? It turns out I'm not just artistic in one vertical, right? And that translates over, right? Because that's the creativity side. And I think we're seeing that. And I think one of the coolest things is being able to see it with, you know, people like yourself that are like major DJs that are very well known worldwide, but also like, you know, like you have an upcoming Sotheby's auction, right? And like, you know, that's considered the fine art world, right? Like I was in Christie's today for the Justin Aversano auction, and you know, he's a photography artist, but like it's amazing to start, you know, when you start seeing more and more creatives get embraced, not just by like the NFT space, but now it's like being recognized by, you know, these institutions that have generally been the ones that put the stamp of approval, right, on what is considered contemporary art or not. And
100%. Yeah, I think we all have our own objectives on what we want to achieve from being in this industry, you know, whether it's whatever creative industry you are in. And I think for me, NFT has really been mostly a way to express myself and to reach people that I've never been able to reach before, but also to show more of myself. And I think, you know, art has to be something personal, and this is probably the most personal work I've done so far. It's just a little bit more comprehensive, and to have it be an auction at these, you know, classic and reputable auction houses is pretty insane. But I think for me, the next step is, you know, going into museums, and that's, you know, I just sold my first piece to a museum a while ago, and that was like kind of mind blowing to me, because, you know, usually, especially coming from music, it's very much seen as low culture, right? So if you're able to paint, or if you're able to make a sculpture, then that's your gateway to be, you know, to ending up in a museum and having your work, you know, admired by people around the world. And I think, I guess music for a lot of people is it's more like throwaway culture. So I think that's been my goal, right? So to create this thing where there's, you know, there's much more depth to what we are doing, and there, you know, there's much more future in it than you would probably expect.
Right. Yeah, and I guess that's a very interesting point too, right? Like now that you say that, it's like, you know, when you go to, you know, the MoMA or the Guggenheim or whatever, a lot of times like there isn't like a music exhibit, right? Because it's like, oh, if you want to listen to cool music, like just open up your Spotify and you have like the catalog there. Why? Like,
exactly.
Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think it's become, like, as you said, throwaway culture? Like, do you think we just kind of like take it for granted because, you know, like you can't, you know, like I can't just look at a sculpture or a painting in real life, the same way that you can like just listen to music as you're walking down the street, you know?
Well, I think you can. It's a matter of changing your perspective, and I think, you know, when I was 19, I came up with a friend. We had the idea like let's start a company, and this company is going, you know, it's basically going to enable a possibility where you can stream music with your computer, you know. And I was like, holy shit, you know, that could be so cool, right? So, but at the time, you didn't really have iTunes or Spotify, or not really. It wasn't. It was definitely not there. You had some of the Napster stuff, and it was still illegal, and it was still downloads. But I got a fund from the local government, and so I was able to start the company. And then it took me. I think we lasted for 2 years. It was called Phase 4, and it's like the idea was like you had vinyl, then cassette tapes, then CD, and the next frontier would be to stream music with your computer. But at the time, people were like, "Holy fuck, no! I'm not going to pay for something that's digital. You know, that's not. I can't, you know, touch. That's not tangible." So yeah, that was like at the time, like preaching to people who were like, "It's never going to happen." Obviously, we now know that all of this stuff is, you know, it's very normal to not own music, to not have CDs anymore. And I think with art, everything is shifting as well. You know, obviously, that's a known fact for everyone in this room. But I think within the world of art, I think different forms of art, whether it's photography or music in this case, will probably, you know, flourish a bit more as well, and have a different space within the scene, and also will allow different hybrid artists to stand up and show more sides of themselves, because there's a new form of art out there, and people are learning to appreciate it. And there's, I think, you know, with the culture, there's new people collecting art pieces that have never been in the art space, and the whole definition of what art is completely changing. And obviously this is for good, and it's for maybe not so good, because some of the stuff obviously is, to me, it feels more like, you know, like people are just really trying to make money fast,
right?
And that's cool as well. But yeah, for me, some of the stuff is like, that's kind of disappointing to me. And I see even some of my peers, you know, or some people in music, I see them do stuff, and it kind of just, you know, kind of makes me, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to express my feelings towards it, but it doesn't really excite me as much. I think that's probably the most decent way to say it.
Yeah, I
you know,
I agree with you. I think that you know, there's like a right way to do things and a wrong way, and I think just like people are not stupid, right? Like we can all pick up on it very quickly, right? And I think that's why you've been able to have so much success, right? Is because you've been so authentic to who you are, and really like that's why you've been embraced by the community, right? Because you've been doing cool stuff. It's not just like, oh guys, like here's like, you know, this collectible that doesn't mean anything, right? It's just a JPEG. And I think that that's something that you've been able to foster, and you're like definitely like a great guiding light for you know, I hope as other musicians or, you know, celebrities or any creatives, as they come into the space, like really like take note as to like what you're doing and how you're interacting with the community, you know?
I don't even want to be that guy. You know, I don't really want to be the next. I just want to be one of the guys. You know, I don't want to be, because when I started, nobody wants to buy art from Don Diablo, the DJ. Fuck that guy. You know, so you want to buy art from someone, you know, who has a vision. And honestly, for me, NFT isn't really about, oh shit, NFT is hot now. I need to create something that I could sell as an NFT. For me, some of the stuff I've been working on for years, and it's now just it really works. You know, like now I'm able to, you know, the whole system just works for me now to sell it. But some of this stuff I've been sitting on for years, and it's just sometimes you have to find the right time and the right place. But I think you really have to think about it like, oh shit, NFT is cool. I might jump into that. Let's see what I can come up with. Just make a visual loop, slap a song to it, and just, you know, see if I can grab a bag of money. To me, that's just a little, it just hurts me a little bit.
Right.
You know, and it's the same, you know, with anything that I do, I guess. You know, for me, you know, I've done a lot of things that I lost a lot of money on, or a lot of things that I never released to the world. You know, like I already built a metaverse last year, and I'm not happy with it. I might not even ever release it. For me, it's really about just, you know, I want to be excited about it, and I'm just looking at it like, if I would see this, would I think this is cool, and also like mostly for people who are not buying it, right? Because I at the moment I'm only making one of one, so I want to make stuff that also gets other people excited, even though you're not buying it, right? So
Right. Yeah.
I think
so
to me, yeah,
I guess that's like a great time to kind of talk about, you know, Hexhibit III, right? And like, if you could describe the piece, you know, you described it to me and you showed it to me, and it really looks dope as fuck. But like, if you could, I guess, describe it to the audience and like talk about the inspirations behind it, because I think that that's like, it's awesome from like what I saw.
thanks, man. No, it's really like, you know, everybody's you know, it's really sort of they don't they, a lot of 99.9% of the world don't get it yet, right? So what is an NFT? Is it something I have in my phone, or what even is a digital wallet, and what the hell do I do with it? And I can't, you know, I can't really experience it as much as I can experience art. So I thought, like, why don't I build like a sort of a spaceship, and you can literally stand inside the NFT. And essentially, it came from an idea that started out as a digital file, you know, and then I thought, like, hey, what's if I actually create the, you know, the piece that you can see in the video, and you get it with the you know, with the token, with the NFT. So it's like you buy the digital token, and it's which basically is an audio video file, and then boom, you get this sort of spaceship delivered to your doorstep as well. And then you can literally stand inside of it, and inside of it, it does a whole different experience, which you don't even know when you buy it. I think for me, a lot of it is really an element of mystery, to be honest. Like, you know, if you look at the piece, I sold at Sotheby's, I sold a thought process or an idea, right? So you're buying a relationship, I guess. And I think with the second piece, Destination Hexagonia, was the same thing. You're buying a film that you haven't seen. It's a 1 hour film, and the idea for that as well, I guess part of the art is showing people that things have a value. You know, like for most of my life, I've had to give things away when it comes to music or music videos. All these things are free, right? Even like live stream. When you do a show, it's like cool. People just sit at home, they watch your live stream, and you know, it doesn't really have value for them. So it was like, what if I create a 1 hour film that, you know, that's sort of the best thing I've ever done, and then not show it to anyone, and just kind of, you know, have this sort of more of a mysterious vibe around it, and then maybe, you know, create this flash drive, protect it, and then have one person own it, and, you know, only that one person can watch it. And in essence, that made the film much more valuable, you know, than anything before, because again, if you get something for free, it's if you get anything you get easily, usually feels, you know, it doesn't feel that valuable, right? So, but I think there's value in everything, but you have to.
I guess I'll just pause you right there regarding getting stuff for free and not having value. Is the CoOp window just opened for those that
I like that, Bridge. I like that, Bridge.
So yeah, so today, because there's been an issue with the website, what we're doing is in order to claim the CoOp today for everybody that's listening live, you just download the CoOp app from the App Store, either on Android or Apple, and you use the secret word of Diablo in order to claim the CoOp. And that'll be open longer today, and I'll remind people later on, but it'll be open until 8 p.m. So it gives everybody an opportunity to download the app and claim the CoOp, which includes some artwork from Don side by side in it. So it's pretty cool, and you know, sorry about that.
Actually, no. It's actually I have to correct you, because the artwork is actually by Terry Pastor. It has a picture of me, and it's from my album artwork. But this was kind of cool, because I finished the album, and I was like, what do I do with the artwork? And I through a friend, I managed to track down Terry Pastor, who is the guy who created the original artwork for David Bowie's Ziggy Stardust and Hunky Dory, which have their 50-year celebrations. So I just kind of thought, like, you know, what's this guy doing? What is he doing now? And he doesn't have a mobile phone, but we visited him in his house in the UK, and we ended up getting him to do an airbrush piece of art. And he's actually very modern. He's almost 80 years old. He's still out there creating. He has no idea what NFTs are. I got him up to speed, got him interested, and I'm definitely going to introduce him into the digital world within the foreseeable future. But that's really what I love about this space. You get to meet people that you normally would never speak to, right? Or
Right.
even like working with, I don't know, like working with someone like Trevor Jones and a lot of money. It's been so much joy. It's been much more joy than to work with some of my peers that I've been making music with, because there's like literally no ego. Just everyone is still like full of wonder and surprise and gratitude and excitement. And this crazy Scottish guy, this Canadian guy who lives in Scotland, this crazy French guy, and then this Dutch guy. They come together and work on this super weird, elaborate piece of art that is very hard to explain to my mom what it is. But we're just having the best time, and then we just sell it for a very substantial amount of money, and it's like to a person who really appreciates it, and everybody's super happy. And it's like, if you would have told me this 2 years ago, I would have laughed.
Right. Yeah. And that's the crazy thing, is like the amount of collaboration that you see in the space is like, I've never seen it like this in any other thing that I've been involved in. Right. Where
no, it's such a massive crossover, right?
Yeah.
Like it's so like when I started selling my first pieces, like literally my phone blew up. Any big pop stars to like big athletes, like out of the Floyd Mayweathers, everyone was like, "Let's do shit. Here's a bunch of money up front. Get it, take it." I was like, "Oh no, what do I do?" And I decided to say no to everyone, and I just wanted to work. And when Trevor Jones hit me up, I was like, "Cool, like Trevor is my dude. I respect what he does in the game." And that's the person I want to work with. Those are the people I want to work with, who really are paving the ways, the paving the way within, our new community. And I think that to me has been important from the start. And that's why I haven't really put out a lot of pieces, because I probably have about 500-600 visual loops and a shitload of songs laying around. I could just throw it on the market. But for me, I want to put my time, love, and energy into it, and also make sure that my whoever buys a piece feels that they're buying something exclusive. And but I do want to create something for a bigger community that's more affordable. I haven't wrapped my brain around yet. I have created hundreds of different options. I'm just still marinating on it, but obviously I'm gonna, it's gonna happen for sure.
Are you open to talking about that right now a little bit? I mean, just
yeah,
because like that's something that I've thought about a lot too, and we were discussing this earlier, where it's like how as an artist, and I would love to obviously get your take, is there's like that fine line between, you obviously have a massive following of you want to create something that's maybe premium for your high-end fans and your high-end collectors, but you also want something that could be affordable, right? That can be inclusive to everyone, so that if I am 15 years old and I have $100, like I can partake in the Don Diablo experience, right? And like I wanted to know like what your thoughts are on that, especially as we see a lot of these whale games in crypto, and people things going for insane amounts that obviously price a lot of people out. As a creator and as an artist, like what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I generally hate selling stuff. Like like on my last concert tour, I was like, I just said to my agents, I'll just pay for everything, and people can get the tickets for free, because I don't want to do all the mumbo jumbo of the promoting and buy the tickets now. Like I hate it, right? So. Generally, the same thing goes. Like, I don't want to sell anything to my fans. I'd rather give them stuff for free, right? So, because I have fans in India and Mexico and like all across the world, and I think it's different for people maybe in America or Asia or Europe. They might have a little bit more to spend, but so again, it doesn't matter what you do. You're probably never going to be able to please everyone unless it's free, I guess. So. I'm just wrapping my head around it. How can you create something that is very low? It's very inexpensive, but at the same time has value. So the one thing I wanted to do first was I felt like I needed to prove myself, right? If if you're giving something, that it has to have value. That's always my point of view. And I needed to make sure that I felt valuable, you know, because I think this year is the first year of my life I truly feel valuable, right? I've mostly been struggling with self-value most of my life. It doesn't matter how successful other people think you are. Like if you don't see yourself there, then it's very hard to, you know, to sell anything to anyone. So for me,
Right.
it was more like, hey, if I can, you know, get out there and you know, get a couple of really good pieces out there and show my vision and, you know, be able to get my work in museums and get auctioned at a place like Sotheby's, or, you know, break the primary sale record on Super Red, and I must be worth something, right? That was my, so I'm at that point now where I feel like, okay, I'm not a total fucking loser. So now I can think about, you know, giving something to someone. I just think in general, like when someone comes in and just, you know, starts, you know, low pricing stuff, you still have to, it doesn't matter if it's low price, you still have to have value, you know, because $2 is a lot of money for someone in India or Mexico still, right? So that was my first objective. Like, how can I prove my value? Because I feel like we all need to start over here. And this is a whole new frontier. Like, I'm not trying to sell anything to my fans because I already make music and, you know, I'm already doing all that. And that's for free. You know, they don't need to, you know, you can just go on Spotify, listen to it for free. You know, YouTube, you can listen to it for free. Everything is already free. So this is more, it was more for me, right? It was for myself to express myself and to create a value within the fine art industry. And also I have a lot of friends who make fine art, and I've always been the little sort of, I guess I don't even know how to describe it, but you know, I guess the not fully accepted little brother, I guess, because, you know, we make fine art, you make music, you know, like that's basically, you know, that's low art. So we are, we're here, you're there. So for me, it was really, you know, the whole thing for them to see what I've done, you know, that it's been a lifelong dream to sell work at places that I'm selling work to now. It's like, you know, it's shocked them.
Right.
And to me, that's my personal little victory. Like, hey, I'm, you know, and I think for me as well, like when I'm very influenced by people around me. Like I want to make my mother proud, or when I'm dating someone, I want my girlfriend to like the song that I made, right? That's it's very stupid, but that's really, you know, I'm very micro influenced.
Right. You know, it's funny how that works. That no matter how successful you are, or how, you know, well you seem to be doing, like, right, like we're all driven by these things that, you know.
Oh yeah. You know, right. Like it's when you're playing and you have 40,000 people in front of you. You see that one guy standing at the fence, like looking like, you know, he just witnessed a disaster. You're like, okay, I gotta get that guy. That's my one objective now. Forget about those 39,999 other people. I gotta get that guy.
Right.
So
yeah, no, it's funny because it's just like, it's almost like it's human nature, right?
Yeah.
To think like that.
Yeah, and I think that hasn't changed for me, but it's I don't know. I feel like for me this is it's really also like much about, like, you know, finding my personal self-worth, and it's a much bigger journey. I think even within, you know, the music industry, I guess, like a lot of my records that I write are very, they're personal. They're about my father's death, or a relationship that ended after 7 years, or these are not records, you know, that are about going to the club or, you know, buying.
Right. Yeah, and
I don't know, drugs, you know, like it's really, yeah.
Yeah, and it's so it's crazy, right? Because I think people understand that, like, people, authenticity really resonates with people, right? Like, you know, you even being vulnerable with us here right now, like, it's like, wow, like, you know, I feel that, right? Like, it's like everybody feels that. I think, you know, everyone in some shape or form deals with that, you know, self-worth question, right? Because, you know, we're all kind of driven by it, right? To some extent, you know. And
yeah, no, 100%. And I think it's really hard because people, they definitely, you know, like, I rarely do an interview, you know, about real substance, to be very honest. Like, they never have, when I put out an album, it's mostly just about sonics and production. And it's like, you know, of course, like I put out bangers, I put out stuff because I like to engineer and I like to fiddle around with sounds by myself in the studio or with friends, or just, you know, like I've been doing that since I was 13 years old, right? So I'm definitely all about, tech for sure. But when you get older, you're also about emotion and about, leaving behind your life story, right? So I think for me, art's the same thing. When I buy art, I buy something because I have a personal connection to it. Whether it's a physical piece or an NFT, I want to know the story of the artist. And even if it's not connected to the piece, I at least want to know, who am I buying this from, right? That makes the piece more valuable. And I think it was cute because my nephew asked me, he's doing like a class presentation on NFTs.
Oh wow,
he's 11 awesome. Years old.
That's incredible.
So he's like, okay, Uncle Don, like, so a lot of art is very expensive. Why do you think that is? And I said, well, no, you're wrong. Art's definitely not expensive. There's a lot of very affordable art out there. It's just the spotlight's put on the expensive art because, the same as music or films, there's, I think over 95% of the music that's on Spotify never gets listened to, but you're constantly hearing the music that's on the radio. And for me, again, like I was in a liberated state of mind when Spotify came and the streaming platforms, because my music never gets played on the radio, and this way, all of a sudden, the power went back to the people, because out of nowhere, I have 2 million subscribers now on Spotify, and I have almost 10 million monthly listeners, between 9 and 10 million monthly listeners. And everybody, like, they always like, where the hell these people come from, but for me, I never really had that massive radio hit, but a lot of my music, people keep streaming, they keep discovering, and it really just works in the algorithm, and I'm just a slow burner, I guess. And I think for me, that's, I'm not trying to run a sprint here. For me, it's all about a marathon, and I want people to slowly discover. And sometimes you have to listen to things 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And I think, that's always been my objective with anything. And I think whether it comes to fashion or music or, I released a comic book series, it's always about substance, and not just about hype. And that does mean sometimes it doesn't, it will go past people. But I think, for me, I did an interview with the Rolling Stone, but it wasn't because I released an album. It was because I released a new art piece with Sotheby's, and I was able to talk about my album as well. So that's kind of now what's going on, right? So it's like, okay, cool. It's not interesting enough to write about your new album that you worked on for 3 years, but you're you're also selling something at Sotheby's. Can we have the exclusive? Let's talk about it. So that works for me. That's fine because I get it. Like I'm not Little Nas X or Ed Sheeran. So I think at the end of the day, there's always a bigger dog. That's the one thing I always keep in mind. Like I feel like I'm still nobody because in the bigger scheme of things, like I look up to people like David Bowie and Prince and Brian Eno, or George Lucas, or any creator that I really admire, and I'm so far away from that. And my life goal is before I die to have a situation where I am, super proud of something that I created. And that's my ultimate goal. And I think I will get closer to that, with the things I'm creating now in the digital art space.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's an incredible goal to work towards, right? And I think your work definitely shows. I'm curious, what were your influences growing up? You mentioned a couple of them just now, but I guess as you were growing up, who were the people that influenced you the most?
Well, my father to begin with. Mm-hmm. He named me after Captain Beefheart. Don Van Fleet was his name, an American. The funny thing was he was a musician. But he actually was also a great painter. So that was one of the things where I was like, okay, so you can be a musician and be well respected in that discipline. But at the same time, he's well respected as a painter. And he ended his last, is the last part of his life as a painter. To me, that was a big influence, like Frank Zappa, Captain Beefheart, Roxy music that was made way before my time, but definitely that was an influence on me. My dad introduced me to that. He was very avant-garde. And then obviously, later on, when I wanted to be in a band, but I wasn't, I didn't really have any friends. So I was like, how the hell am I going to do this? Then I bought an Atari computer like, holy shit, you can make music with a computer. This is going to be dope, you know? And then I just locked myself in the studio my whole childhood, and that's, you know, and my computer became my best friend. And, you know, I think from there on, like, I started making music videos around age 17. If you look at, I have one video that I made when I think it was 20 years old. It's still actually, I'm working on creating a sort of a retrospective NFT of it. It still looks like very, very, very now actually. It's basically a video where I've replaced my head with a question mark, and you see sort of a society where everyone's wearing the same suit, they're all going into the same direction, and I'm just really wandering around with a question mark for my head, and just wondering which direction to go into. And I think that really sort of already, what the track was called, Useless. That kind of sums up my youth. I was really trying to figure out, like, how can I find you? So I think a lot of these things came from very different people just experimenting a lot. And I think as a kid, I had all the Queen DVDs, CDs, that, you know, Freddie Mercury. Definitely, you know, that made a big impact on me when he passed away. And you know, but just the way they dressed, they expressed themselves. They were artists in the fullest sense of being an artist, right? Like, just through expression, but also like their clothes and experimentation. You know, when I was into Queen, and then I heard them make another one, Bites the Dust, and I was like, holy shit, what are these loops? And what are all these weird sounds, like, and like that was like the first discovery for me to, like, oh, this is almost like electronic music. And that's how I got interested and made the jump over. And from there on, I guess, old school arcade games, I've always collected them. And I actually just
what was your number one arcade game growing up?
Yeah, I can't say it because I actually had a conversation with them today. Like, they're from Japan, and it's I finally had the conversation, and I'm looking into doing a series of collectibles with them.
All right, that's cool.
Yeah, and it's again, I've been approached to do collectibles, but again, I feel like I want to bring something extra, like something more legacy, something that emotionally means something to me. It's the first arcade that I bought with my, you know, the first money I made from music when I was 13, when I released my first record. I still have that cabinet. It's been in every bedroom that I've lived in my whole life. And yeah, I've now, you know, I don't want to speak about it too much because I don't want to jinx it. But again, this is one of the things, you know, like, I think one of my life goals was to work with Star Wars, because George Lucas and Star Wars have been a big influence on me. Mm-hmm. I think, you know, I grew up with those films because that was the only thing I had in common with my brothers and my father growing up, I guess, because we didn't really speak much. But I think that's the power of art, right? It's music or film can connect you without really speaking much. It's like, okay, we get Yoda, we get Obi-Wan Kenobi, we get that, and that's something we can talk about. We don't want to talk about real feelings, but we can talk about the Force, right? So to me, that got such a magical sort of attraction growing up, and then I started looking at what clothes are they wearing. You know, it's actually really dope. You know, and that started influencing me. And then I was like, oh shit! Well, all the machines and everything in that movie it's all battered. It all has dust on it. You know, and that the whole aesthetic really started to. It was a big influence on me, right? And then the music, obviously, right? So I think, to me, though, those were the earliest influences, and I really sort of what got me into the whole futuristic approach to things that I'm doing right now. And obviously, I just released a collectible with Star Wars last week, and I'm planning a few more at the moment, and that's pretty full circle for me. You know, like
I mean, that's awesome. I mean, I don't think that's what got you into being a futurist. Like, you're a futurist, like, from the heart. Like, as soon as you were born, you were a futurist. Just, you know, you've always been tinkering with tech and bringing the future to now. So,
I love going. As a kid, you had this thing called the House of the Future, right? And I loved going there. I loved, like, I had this phone, and I could, you know, I had a watch that I used as a phone. I had no one to talk to because no one else had it, and it didn't really work with a real phone. And I had this thing called intranet, right? Like, it was right before internet. I just plugged it into my wall, and my mom was like, "What the hell are you doing here?" Literally, there was no one to speak to, but I would get like one news message a day, And I was like, oh shit! And then I would actually, I would be able to receive it on my watch, and I would be in school, like just primary school, or I don't know what the English term for it is, and the kids would be like, oh shit, he got a news message on his phone, right? And all that stuff just always really excited me because I grew up with, actually my parents wanted 2 kids, so I was a little bit of an accident. I couldn't be aborted, so I was like, okay, mom, I'm gonna prove you I'm worthy of being here, right?
So you were the third.
I was the third, and then I was born with severe heart and lung failure, so they didn't even know I was going to make it past my teens. And then I said, okay, cool, I'm going to live in the future. If I'm not going to see the future, I'm going to try to be a part of it. That's why, like when I was 12, 13, started figuring out video editing and bought the green screen, and I showed my mom these films where I was actually in the future. I'm in the future. My mom was acting in these videos. Like, she was. I didn't really have any actors, so it was either my dad's acting skills were even worse than my mom's. But so it really, that really sort of is what started everything for me. And then I guess when music came, I wanted to make futuristic sounding music. Again, because I don't know, like we could be gone tomorrow. So I always like to think of what it would be like to live in the future. And it's surprising, right? We're still not on hoverboards and we're still driving cars. It's like, what the hell, guys?
Yeah. Like the Jetsons and Back to the Future really fucked it up, huh?
Yeah, no, like what the hell here, guys? Like, I think, like everything that's happening now is the closest thing, to being in the future, I guess. And, we're now making big strides, I think, also thanks to the pandemic. And for me, building these hologram cabinets, I've had them for quite a while. Because that came from Star Wars, the inspiration, right? I was like, Princess Leia coming up as a hologram. Like, holy shit, I want that in my house. So I started making it, and then I just had it in my house. I was like, okay, what now, right? Sometimes it's easy to create something, but then the hardest part for most artists is how do you market it? How do you sell it? And what is it, right? I think that's, really the hard part. A lot of super talented artists out there in the NFT space as well that don't get seen yet. And I think it gives a lot of people massive anxiety because they're not, there's a lot out there. So that I've spoken to a lot of guys, even in the beginning, they were selling for really good prices. And now they're like, holy shit, like I did a drop after that and it completely tanked and I haven't left my house since, right? So
right.
It's excitement. And at the same time, there's anxiety. I'm like, holy shit, like, but at the same time, like a lot of my peers came to me and they're like, okay, cool. Like, this is a life hack. How did you do this? I'm like, it isn't really, I'm just creating shit. And then it's just, I don't even know what I'm doing. I fucked up my first mint, like literally I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing here. But I think it's also about not being afraid to ask questions because it's all, we're still pioneering. There's guys out there that are way more, way deeper in the space and they're way more technically developed, but you only learn by asking questions. And I think it's really about not being afraid. And for me, I just saw myself as a student, right? I think before I did anything, I was in clubhouses for months, just kind of being part of the community, listening in, helping other people, and discovering together, I guess, that's the one thing I think a lot of people never realize. It's so much more than just chucking something out there.
Right. Yeah. And so, I mean, I guess to take that one step further, right? Like it's, you really seem to be detached from the idea of art living forever, right? And that's really counterintuitive to kind of like just technology in general, but especially blockchain, right? Where everything is on chain forever. But you love the idea of like kind of messing around and be like, hey, like this thing changes, right? Like you even mentioned that in like the Rolling Stone article where like the experience will change over time depending on like, what you decide to do, right?
I think the memory is sometimes more valuable than the actual piece. I don't know if that makes sense, but
no,
for me,
it makes total sense.
Or even the memories that it gives other people, because if you create something, the one thing I've noticed is it loses value so quickly for other people because they get saturated, right? So that's why I wanted to create a couple of things that are out there that have sort of a mystery around it. There's this film, but I've never seen it. Now I want to see it. If I would have shown it to you, you would have been like, that was cool. Okay, now I've, fuck that thing. moving on to the next thing, right? So it's like the new James Bond movie comes out, we're all disappointed. Like, holy shit, what did you guys expect? This shit's like, my God, what are we expecting here, guys? So it's like, it's very hard to please people, right? It's like, I put out an album 2 weeks ago and people are like, oh shit, when are you bringing out new stuff? I just dropped 21 songs, but like, cool, man. Like, like I got a couple of more coming next week. Like, you know, it's really, for me, it's really sometimes about what you don't see, right? Like in your head, like even like stuff from my youth, right? That have such a sort of a mystery around it. Things weren't so accessible. It wasn't so easy to talk to people. It wasn't so easy to just see everything, stream everything, and learn everything about everything. I think sometimes you have to have that mystery around it, and it has to be inaccessible, and then it becomes, you know, you can start dreaming about it, and that dream is part of the art, right? That's basically how I envision it, because you know, sometimes you don't even want to see it or hear it or feel it or experience it. But even like for me, like with this big piece, I'm like, you know, when I'm talking to potential collectors, like, would you be open to having me destroy it after 3 years? And you just have to, you have the digital version, right? So it's always going to be there. Like, but we can put it on public display. We'll go to museum. People will go into it for a year, 2 years, whatever. And then can we destroy it?
What's been their response?
Yeah, some of them are open to it. Some of them are like, hell no. But I really, for me, it's very important. I find the right fit for it when it's the pieces that are this big. I think, you know, you don't want to just randomly put them up for auction, because people don't really understand what the piece is. It takes, you have to talk to the bigger collectors up front, and you have to tell them, like, you know, the dimension, right? Like, you can't really put this in your living room. So you got to make a separate little house for it, or whatever. It needs to go outside or in a museum or whatever. And this is what's going to happen. So I think, you know, for me, I also love the connection with collectors, because, you know, generally anyone who's in this space, anyone who's listening right now is a very interesting person. You know, that's something, anyone who's listening now, I could spend the whole night with, you know, because if you're listening to this, whatever, like for my mom, this is mumble jumble, and for 99.9% of the world, this is mumble jumble. But this means you have an open vision, and especially people who are successful to the point where they can buy, you know, sort of more exclusive NFTs. They're actually very fascinating people, and they're very ambitious, and they're very much out there to help the community in a lot of cases, right? They're not just there to randomly put it in their house and disappear. And I think meeting sorry, I got a call. That's been very enlightening to me, because they've really opened my vision to a lot of different things. And they've also really empowered me, and they've shown me different paths to you know, how to create. And I think even like, let's take the piece with Trevor Jones. I was introduced to Trevor through a mutual collector. So I think, you know, that would have never happened if there wasn't that connection. And I think that's what I love. It's not that anonymous anymore. And it's really, you know, I flew to Dubai to meet one of my collectors, 3F Music, and he's just super amazing Iranian music engineer with such an epic life story, you know. And he you know, just having dinner with him and talking to him about life, just really, yeah, it was so valuable beyond the point of selling art or right. You know, and I think even in the space in general, I've made so many new friends who, you know, have such a similar vision, that, you know, it's been so valuable.
Yeah, no, I agree, you know. And I'm just gonna stop one right there for a second, just to give people another announcement on the POAP is, if you want to collect the POAP, you can download the app in either the App Store on Apple or Android, and you can type in the word Diablo as the password to collect today's POAP, and it'll be available until 8:05 p.m. For those that are trying to collect. But yeah, no, I mean, thank you for sharing all that. You know, like I one of the questions I have is, you know, like, you obviously seem very close with your family, and I really, really appreciate that. because I'm also close to my family. I'm an only child, but I'm very close with both of my parents. And how do you find your family bonds and your relationships? You speak about your relationship with your father a lot, not just here, but just in your art. How do you find that these bonds have made their way into your art, but specifically into your NFT creative side?
Oh, it's really I guess the biggest source of my inspiration. If I look at, I guess it really gives me the let's take my father for an example, right? Like, even like the comic book series that I created, that story is really, that was an ode to my father. And I think, you know, whatever you do when it comes to art, it has to be personal, otherwise, for me, it's just a way of expressing myself, or to deal with grief, or to, to put things in perspective, and or also to keep remembering things, right? Because when my dad passed, it was like, holy shit, like it's so abstract, right? Where the hell do we go, and what the hell? Like, that's where titles like Infinite Future come from, or even if you listen to Infinite Future, the audio piece that is also as a fragment on my album is, at the end of it. So there's like little fragments of audio in it that from my youth, where it's like from us playing at the beach, or just in the kindergarten, but also the last recorded conversation that I had with my father. There's like a 5-6 second snippet in there, which is like, it's weird for me to use that, but the idea of him not being, like, where the hell is he? Like that whole idea that, for me, that's what I base a lot of my art on, around the concept of time. That's why my album is called Forever, and my previous album is called Future. It really, and also it makes me wonder why the hell we are here, right? So I think why we are here is to connect with people and to help other people, and also like family. I guess it's the cornerstone. And for me, my mom. I see my mom every week. Like I travel 4 hours up and down every week to see my mom, and it's like I think for me it's the most important thing in my life, is to to make that connection with the people that are important to me, and there are not a lot of people who I'm that close with. Like even during the pandemic, it really, very honest, was quite lonely. There was like because all my friends have girlfriends, they all like, everyone's kind of in their own bubble, and I basically spend most weekends just sitting by myself, and that's how I came to creating these NFTs and thinking about family. I went through old videotapes and memories, and it allowed me to go back to to young Don, and just think about all the friends that I lost through cancer and suicide, and all family members are very important to me that are no longer here. And that just kind of led to the idea of like, can I create something that has a bit of legacy, and also like I'm still here. I'm out here trying to make my mom proud. She doesn't understand what's going on Spotify, but she knows Sotheby's. Like my mom and dad loved watching these auctions, and like to tell her, like in the first, for my Genesis piece, I think my mom was like, oh shit, and it got auctioned, like, oh shit, 110 euros. That was insane. It's like, oh yeah, mom, it wasn't 110 euros, it was 110 ETH. Oh shit, I don't know what ETH is, but I hope it's more than €1. I was like, yeah, mom, I got you. I'm taking you out to dinner. But I was there, like the finale, I was there with my mom, and she was sitting next to me. She had no clue what was going on, but the only thing I wanted to do was hang up and then just sit there with my mom and talk about, trying to explain to her what just happened. And when you're that close to your partner, my mom and dad were together for 50 years, and then if someone is no longer there, like, for her, like the concept of time is completely different than for me, or for you guys who are listening. We still have a future ahead. For her, it's more like, these are my last days, and I'm going to try to spend them as well as I can. But I don't really have anything left to do here anymore on this planet. So I want my mom to live through me a little bit, that I feel like that's my mission, to make her smile,
Right.
So
It's funny you say that, because I have experienced like something similar on a smaller scale where, my parents understand that I'm involved with something with crypto and that I seem to be doing well, but, but like, they're happy for the success, but they really don't, understand it totally. Right. Like, they'll come in and listen to the podcast and, and listen to my interviews when I do them. But a lot of the times, like, they don't understand, but they're just.
Gmoney is the boss, parents. If you're listening right now, he's the boss. Listen to me. I'm here in Amsterdam. This crazy Dutch guy. He's the boss. I'm not talking to anyone right now. I'm talking to Gmoney. So, no, I mean, it's you're right. Like, it's very hard to grasp it, but it also puts things in perspective. Because I come home, I tell these things to my mom, like, hey, Mom, I'm just creating an R&R piece with Google, and I'm just, signed this deal with Star Wars, and I'm about to auction my first piece at Sotheby's. But first, I'm launching this new project with the United Nations together with the Pope and the Prime Minister of Germany. She's like, okay, great, but do you want the mayonnaise with the mustard? Or, like she said, no, it's like literally, this all sounds great to me. I have no, like, how are you feeling? Like, how are you doing? Are you happy?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm not happy. But that, okay, well, are you closer to getting happy? I'm working on it, Mom. I'm getting there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she just puts everything in perspective. But we're always chasing stars that we can't reach, right? So, and I think the one thing I don't want to regret is that, once my mom is no longer there, that I wasn't able to share these things, because I had my breakthrough right after my dad passed. So that's the one thing that always haunts me, right? He's never been able to see me at this level of success, because he only saw me in my darkest period when I was, not only, but I guess it ended when he passed away. I was living in London, like literally had nothing. And I really hoped that I could make it work, before his passing. And that didn't happen. I was like, fuck. And I'm basically a failure for the rest of my life, because my dad didn't see me, flourish in the way I'm doing right now. So now it's hard to.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think he would think about your art and your career today?
Honestly, I wrote a song about that called "1,000 Faces," and it's really I wonder, but the last thing he said to me, it was basically something that really opened up everything for me. Anyway, right before he passed, he held my hand. He said, like, Donzo, that's what he called me. It doesn't matter, like, whatever I was proud of you the day you were born. I'm proud of your brother. I'm proud of your other brother. I'm proud of all three of you. Whatever you do, I just want you to be happy. And also don't be that hard on yourself, because I don't know, like, whatever you do, there's always people that shit on you, right? It's like, your music sucks, like, okay, cool. Well, thanks, man. So it doesn't, like, it's very hard to take, you can get 100 compliments, but that one insult will hit you in the fucking gut and it will destroy you on the inside for the rest of your week. So, but he that's the thing he said. And then I wrote this song in the hallway, called The Artist Inside. I played it on this little xylophone, this melody, and then I released it I think a few weeks after his passing, and as the theme song for Stand Up Against Cancer. And that became my first hit, and that was my breakthrough record. And that was like, holy shit, Dad, like, you made me do this. And from there on, I started to get a fan base in my own country. They started to embrace me. The second record got picked up, and then I had a long way to go still. That took me still like 7 years. But that was the opening. He opened the door for me, and I feel like now I owe him, to be the best, artist that I can be. That's why the track was called The Artist Inside Me, because he is the artist inside me. He looking back on it, he was the person that gave me value. He was, he taught me everything he knew about art. He wanted to make music, but he ended up providing for his family. So now I feel like I need to chase that dream for him as well.
But yeah, I mean, I'm very sure he's looking down on you and very proud. Not that he needed.
Don't get me emotional, man. Don't do this to me.
No, I'm getting emotional over here, man. Like, you're going really deep, and I really appreciate that. To go deep in such a public forum, I think, takes a lot of guts, and I really commend you for that, because that's incredible, sharing that story with us.
I think, you know, like, yeah, I think the one thing that, you know, if I look at my fans, people always like, how the hell all these kids are showing up to your show, like they're completely dressed, you know, in all your clothing, and they're like, you know, it's a very emotional show. Like, you know, I thought you go to a DJ and be like banging the shit out of it, and now I'm just fucking. I'm not crying. There's onions. So it's for me. You know, I do these raves and I play them. It's fun, but then I do my own shows. I do my own tours, and they're like 4-hour shows. They tell a story, and it's really, if you don't know, you don't know. Like, I think, you know, a lot of artists, they have different stories, but usually we don't go that deep because we're afraid to explore, or, you know, we have a certain idea of who a person is, and that's where we want to, you know, that's fine. We leave it there, I think. But I've been lucky, and it's taken me many years to create that connection with people, because at the end of the day, art still is it's about humanity, right? It needs to touch you. I think that, as well as like that's what NFT is about for me as well. It's like all of these smaller artists creating out there, making $2,000-$3,000 a month now, and being able to make a living, you know, like that. Yeah. That to me is like, you know, that's the real revolution out there. And I think that's what I said to my nephew when he did his presentation. 11-year-old boy doing a presentation on NFTs.
When is he gonna mint his first piece? That's the next question, right?
I'm telling him not to do it. I want him to go out there. I want kids. I want them to not just solely live in, because everyone's like, let's build a metaverse. Let's go in and like this, you know. I'm like, cool, but also like just play around. Let's go out and hang out with friends, and also like, you know, just enjoy life. Go, you know. For me, that's been a goal. I took my first holiday in 7 years last week. So for me, it's like, oh shit, I go outside. Like for me, a holiday was like, cool, I get to spend a whole week with my computer by myself. You know, like, I think, you know, there is life out there. And even like for me, I got back on the road this week, and it was very weird for me, you know, like just to be, and like, why am I sitting here waiting in a hotel room in Boston for 6 hours? You know, and like, why am I away from everything that's dear to me? And now I've got to go into a plane. I got to go to Miami, and again, I have to do the whole thing again. And I just, you know, it's really changed this whole period, you know, whether it's the pandemic or the whole explosion around digital art and NFT. I think it all came together so beautifully. Even this, you know, the chats like this and Clubhouse, it all really brings everything so full circle. And I feel like this is all happening for a reason, and we have to take a learning from it before we go back to like doing exactly the same shit we did before.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's like, I think leads us to like an amazing question, which is like, obviously you're thinking about this, and I've had this conversation a ton with friends with kids, right? Like I don't have kids, but I have a lot of friends that do have like kids that are anywhere between 1 and 5 years old. And a lot of them, you know, as a parent, and rightfully so, is like, you're concerned about, you know, how do you get your child to have less screen time, right? How do you get them to go out and enjoy the real world? Because that's, you know, that's probably the most human thing that you can possibly do, even as we're going more digital over time. You know, and that's a conundrum, right? Like that's something that we, I think, as a industry have to figure out. And it's like, how are we going to be safe and not be toxic and hit those endorphins every 5 minutes, right? Like, you know, for that dystopian future, which, you know, we both want to stop from happening, right? How?
No, yeah.
You know, like how
that's the question.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question, right? But I think
I think it's convenience, right? When you see a lot of parents, you put an iPad in a kid's hand, it's like, oh shit, they're silent now, I can eat, you know? Like,
yeah, exactly. It's funny. All my friends, before they had kids, they're like, I'm not going to let my kids watch any TV or anything until they're like 3 years old. And then as soon as they have one kid, they're like, oh yeah, like that, you know, definitely putting on the TV, right? Because that's like 10 minutes, 15 minutes of peace and quiet where, you know,
man, it's like hours. Like,
yeah.
You know, no, for sure. Like, but no, I agree. Like for me, it's, you know, I shouldn't talk because I grew up with computers, you know, like, you know, I've hidden myself in my room most of my youth, but I think, you know, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. And I think this is the new reality. We are doing a lot more with computers. This is where our social life is, you know, whether we connect with friends there or we play these games that are almost like being out there in the real world. We connect maybe not with a friend on the street, where we connect with a friend somewhere in India that we've never met. I think there are good sides to it as well. And I think that's just going to be the future, right? And I think we're going to have to accept that, and there's not really a way to fight back to it. And I think the only thing you can do is just, go do things with your kids, or you can take them on a holiday and maybe not bring the iPad, but it's there's going to be a lot of crying, there's going to be a lot of yelling, and you're going to have to face reality, and it's like you have to do real work. Holy shit, I have to talk to my kid. Holy fuck. No, it's crash chat.
I have to have a relationship.
No, it's like when you're touring or stuff, or like when you're with people, like, holy shit, like Instagram is down. We have to have a real conversation now. What the fuck, man? Like this is gonna be painful.
I hear you.
Oh man, well, no WhatsApp. What the hell? Oh shit. What man? You gotta go on Telegram. Like what am I doing here? So I think for me that's I love having a real conversation, but it's hard. But I think technology also allows us to have real conversation, because here we are, like, having a conversation through Twitter.
Yeah, literally Twitter on opposite sides of the world. Like it's crazy, right? Like, and I guess so. Then, like, do you have plans? Like, and I'm sure you've thought about it. Is like
have kids?
No, not
okay.
But like, with regards to, I guess, incorporating like NFTs into your shows and like real life experiences of some sort, right? Like, have you thought about that, and like how to? Because like to me, like one of the coolest things I did was a co-op in Miami, where I had this kind of treasure hunt where people would come, claim a co-op, get an NFT, and then go back along whatever they were doing along the day. And like some people were like, "Oh, that's the coolest thing I did," because it integrated like my NFT world with the real world, right? And like I think that there's an opportunity there as somebody that tours around and does a lot of live events, of being able to do something cool, like that. I can't even think of it right now, but like something that people haven't even thought of, where you're like, oh, I think that would be pretty dope.
I don't really know if I'm mixing, because I'm just making my name in the fine art world, right? So I'm literally speaking to some of the biggest museums in the world. So I'm not really. I feel those are like almost like two different entities, even though I'm just in the same. It is influencing my. We just talked about sort of, I guess, getting a little bit less screen time or something. So for me, I've always had this like, crazy visual aesthetic behind me, and we did all this crazy stuff. And for me, it's like, why not maybe now just do a red screen behind me, or just a logo, or just, sort of a gradient or something, instead of having an overload of impulses. There's already so much going on around you. There's someone standing next to you. There's the music. There's a guy on stage playing the music. But there also has to be space for you to imagine, to go inside your own head. And I think that's why some of the art I've done as well, it's a bit more minimalistic, because I want you to have your own idea around it, right? So I have been thinking about like, oh shit, now I'm going to go elaborate. I'm going to do the created this metaverse. I was like, shit, I'm going to bring that on stage and blow people's minds. And I'm like, wait a minute. I mean, people are coming there for the music, maybe. So maybe, I should do something completely different. And then you actually hit the nail on the head, because I was asked to maybe, you got to ask for a lot of crazy stuff nowadays. One of them is like, can you build a museum? I was like, cool. But like, maybe this could be something bigger than just a physical museum or a digital museum. You have a country, so I have an idea, or there's a group of people around me that have amazing ideas. We bring all of them together and we create something much bigger, something that hasn't been done before. I don't necessarily believe in recreating something that exists in the real world in the digital world. I feel like you can create things that have never existed, in the real world. I think that really excites me, and I think like something like a treasure hunt, all that type of stuff is like, it's really engaging. That's like super fun to me. But for me, I still feel like I'm always a little bit hesitant to doing things, because I still feel like, I don't know, like I'm throwing a party and people are not showing up,
Right. No, so
I don't know why. It's like, fuck, man. Like you have like people are not gonna fuck that. No, screw it.
No, it's funny you say that, because like whenever I do something, I'm always like, oh man, but what if people don't like it? And I'm just like, you know what? Like, we're gonna find out. Like, and if people don't like it, that's fine. We just go back to the drawing board and we figure out something else, right? That
No, I mean
that
that's so true. That's the essence, literally. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm gonna, I've done stuff that like failed miserably, and those are just facts, And it's really about just owning up to it and just like that's it's fine to fail, right? So. I think also when you fail, not many people will see it because you failed. So it's almost like when I play and it's like the first show on this tour, I come back like with that place was almost empty. I'm like, holy shit! I said to my tour manager, I think I'm. That's it, man. I'm like nobody cares about me anymore. I was sitting there in my room staring at the walls, like, oh shit. And then promoter came in. It's like, oh, like you actually did. That was the biggest selling show, or like one of the biggest selling shows. Like it's just been very slow season for us. Oh, okay. And then the next day I went to Miami. It's like, oh shit, you really killed. Like that was you sold an insane amount of tickets. And then the next day to Boston, like, holy shit, you're like, this is the most tickets you've sold so far. I was like, man, that was in a dark hole, man. Like, holy shit, that's the worst. But the thing is, the miserable feeling of day one didn't weigh up against the joy of day 2 and 3. That was more like, okay, I accepted it. Like, cool, I didn't fail. That's cool.
Right.
But I didn't feel the same amount of euphoria leveled out towards the amount of anxiety and depression to when I heard like, holy shit, there's no one here.
Yeah.
Like I have to go into that room. It's like, oh, this is like crickets, like you have this really epic intro. It's like, oh shit, and like and that's like, woo, in the corner, like, oh shit, please don't film this and put it on the internet. But I think this is the thing. Like big people still feel every day. That's just a fact. Like literally, I've seen friends in the NFT space that cry. They've sold real world art pieces for like very impressive, financial amounts, and then they sell an NFT and it's like, holy shit, I am now officially depressed.
Right. Yeah.
And it really influenced their real world art. Like they're like, oh shit, are people now going to still buy my real world art because like my NFT just flopped?
Right. Yeah. No. And it's funny how that negative emotion is always much stronger than the positive emotion. Like always. Yeah.
Why the fuck? Like hell, man. Like God. Yeah. We need to. That needs to change. We need lessons in that. We need to balance it out more. I think. That's the one thing I'm just trying to weigh out. Like, I think that's why for me, I went back on this tour. I was like, cool, let's not take a production manager or like, I'm not taking a VJ this time. I'm just going to go a little bit smaller and see how that feels because that feels like more acceptable when things go wrong, right? I was playing in Chicago and this, there were like massive technical issues. And I just kind of stood there very relaxed because I was like, cool, I anticipated this because I wasn't aiming for perfection.
Right.
I was just trying to have fun and just, connect with my fans. And that's the one thing I've learned, like as I've been such a perfectionist, it's just been, it gets a little aggressive.
Right.
You're like, literally, and you just walk off the stage like incredibly angry. And like, there's like thousands of people out there like super happy, but you're like, no, there's this, you missed the cue here and that was the wrong visual. And like, holy shit, like, get all these things went wrong, but they never suspected anything. Yeah, nobody knew, nobody cared. They were like, just like, this was if this was 100%, then they experienced 95% of that was perfect to them, and that they've already forgotten about that 5%. But I think it's really about the mind state, the way you go in. If you're like, this is going to be perfect, like with your teeth just kind of clutched. Mm-hmm. That's going to be a completely different mindset than where you're like, okay, I'm just going to give it my best shot and like let's see where it ends up. And I think. That's really been a big change for me. And I think here as well, like there's a lot of pressure, like, when you're doing, sometimes I'm just really grateful to be operating at this level. And sometimes I'm like, this is a curse. I just want to sell some fun stuff on a Tuesday, put it on foundation and just see what the hell happens, Because I have a lot of fun stuff out there. Like, I sold it for, like 0.1 ETH. Let's go.
Right.
Like let's celebrate tonight.
I definitely hear you, right? And I guess so that leads me, I guess, one of my final questions. So I want to be cognizant of your time and knowing that it's late over there. Why do you think NFTs for music haven't taken off the same way they have for other art forms yet?
I think it's really about innovation, right? It's not about doing the same thing but packaging it in a different way. I think a lot of
art has been very innovative. Also, a lot of art has never really had a place, right? There was never really a place for digital visual art. Like, you know, like there's always been a place for digital streaming music, right? So I feel like that's why there was more excitement around all the other stuff, right? You know, whether it's like digital poems or like, you know, all that stuff now has a space, or like photography, but music has always been digital. So I think there wasn't really anything really innovating happening with just audio, right? So there is stuff happening, and I mean, I'm definitely going to be at some point selling a song as with full rights as an NFT. But at this point, I'm like, yeah, that's not really, it's not really innovative or creative. That's more like a thing that I would probably do.
Right.
But at this point, like, I'm just too excited to think about more innovative stuff and to do stuff that I haven't done before. And I think, you know, there's some people who pull it off, and then I'm like, you know, looking back on it, you're like, holy shit, why did I pay a shitload of money for a song that nobody really cares about? You know, like, is this a pyramid scheme? Like, you know, like that, you know, that's the one thing that I try to stay away from, because I feel that it's, you know, you have to put things in perspective. Like, is this going to be, you know, valuable in the way that you thought it was going to be valuable? And I want to make sure I give that value, because a lot of this stuff, man, I'm like, holy shit, like, why are you guys valuing this at? Like, this is crazy, you know, like, yeah, I think there are a lot of things happening even within music, and I've seen things happen. You know, people getting together a good amount of money, selling their rights, and I'm like, oh, this song is probably going to get stuck at 100,000 streams. I don't think, you know, owning the rights of this will justify you just paying $100,000 for this, but that's cool,
right?
So I think people are still figuring out, like, right. So for me, I'm probably, you know, I have people that are just hitting me up about my catalog. They want to buy all of my publishing and master rights, which is separate from NFT, but I might actually end up selling it as an NFT. Like, here you go. I'm not precious about owning anything. I prefer not owning anything, because, you know, because again, nothing is forever. And I when I die, I don't want, like, what do you do with all my stuff, right? So
right.
Yeah, I don't even like music. Yeah, but buy my music rights. It's fine. Like, I'm like, cool. Like, if you, yeah, you can, if, you know,
I think that's a really interesting thought, right? Because I think a lot of times you hear musicians say, oh, you know, you always hear the story of Michael Jackson and the Beatles and you know, buying the rights and all that stuff, and people are very protective of their rights. And so, like, it's very interesting, you know, to hear to your point of view, and it's very different. And I think it's like, it's almost like it's the provenance, right? Where it's like, you know what music you make, right? Like, and you know you can make more music, and you know you're good at it, right? So it's like, it's almost like, you know, yeah, sure, like, you can sell the rights, but, you know, for the originals, you know, you want Don Diablo making cool, awesome music, like, you can go back towards it. And this is something
that's actually funny that you say that, because a lot of people are like, oh, you're not like, I miss the old Don Diablo. Like, okay, cool. Well, let me go back. That is this like the Don Diablo that was 13, or the guy that was like 21, or the guy, you know, that was 28. Like, which, like, you know, when I started experimenting with the drum and bass, or like, was it when I created my own version of Future House, or like which Don Diablo are you missing? Like, it's still there. All that stuff is still out there, but I don't want to keep making the same thing over and over, you know. And again, I'm not precious about stuff. Like, when Napster and all this stuff came, I was like, yeah, let's, like, take my music, man. Like, enjoy yourself with it. That's the intention of the whole thing. Like, you know,
right.
And I don't, if I have enough money to just, you know, to do whatever I love to do, that's great. Like, I didn't even, my accountant was like, dude, like, you've been living in the same house, like, you know, from age 19 in this, you know, sort of small apartment. Like, what the hell, man? Like, you're like, you know, you're in the top 10 of the world, you know, of electronic musicians. So have you looked at your bank account? I was like, no, money scares me. So, like, you know, because it comes and it goes, you know, because it's always more money, more problems. I've had, there's so many, even with this NFT, you know, with the things that have been happening, so many opportunists have come to me, and it's given me so much stress. And I think, you know, like, what do you do with all of this? And so I said, I'm never going to look at it as long as I can pay my bills and I can pay all of my personnel and everything. You know, you go from having one employee to having 10 to 15 or 20, and they all want raises. They all want something, right? So
right.
They all have expenses. There's shit happening. You're like, oh shit, this shit comes in. It goes out quicker than it came in, and I'm like, you get stressed. So I'm like, let me just focus on just creating. But he was like, well, you've done pretty well, man. Like, I think you can buy a nice place. So I was like, okay. So I ended up buying this church, and I started rebuilding it, and this became, sort of one of my hobbies, to just start rebuilding places. And I started, just creating a home.
Right.
And that's really been something that's been very valuable for me. But other than that, I never owned a car. Like I have a lease, and I don't really care. Like I don't want to be afraid of damaging something or own anything, I guess. And I also don't want that to be a part of my status, driving.
Right.
I have a nice car, so sometimes I'm on the road, like people they're next to me and they're honking and they're like waving. I'm like, oh shit, I have a nice car. I forget about it, because at the end, I'm still that 13-year-old kid who lives in that small village who has absolutely no money and is just driving around on his moped. So for me, it's just all still very weird. I still feel like I'm an actor in this movie, that I got this role and I'm still trying to learn the lines. So, and I think that's kind of what life is to me. And I'm trying to just, I'm just trying to make the score and do a little bit of the art around it. And I think, again, like music rights for me, somebody wants to own my music rights. Again, when people, were downloading my music illegally, I was like, dude, that's cool, man. Like, you would actually do all that stuff, go on FTP server and like literally download my shit illegally. That's dope, man. Congratulations. I love it that you love my music this much.
Yeah. It's so funny, right? Because and I think that really speaks to issues that are probably coming at us on blockchain, right? Where, it really is that provenance, right? Where it's like,
No, listen, and this is another important thing to mention. Like, that's the one thing I want to say. Like, some of my fans were like, oh, with my first piece, my Genesis piece, they were like, cool, now you created this, and there's this song, and you've been working on it, and since you were 19, it's the whole story, and we don't even get to hear it. It went to this one rich guy somewhere far away. Like, oh, no, you just go to Super Air. It's just there. Just click on it. You listen to it. It's just, just for free. Boom, here you go. You just don't own it, but you can listen. You can listen to it. It's just there. It's just not on Spotify. You have to You have to take a little bit more effort. But if you're really that fussed about it, you really, you're not excluded at all. It's there for you. This is the whole point. If you sell something physically, you will never be able to see it. But here we go. It's an NFT. You're going to look at it. It's out there for everyone, and this is democratic. I don't know why you feel so aggressive about this, or why you feel so excluded. It's like, oh, it's NFT. I hate it. It's like, it's just a way of displaying it and selling something. It's like nobody like, oh, did you have to buy this through Ideal? I hate it. Like nobody's gonna hate on Ideal. Like, for the outside world, it doesn't change anything. But for some reason, there's so much aggression around the concept of doing stuff within the NFT world. It's like, oh, now you've lost me, man. I'm like, no, not really. It's literally, it's the richness and the ideas that we can implement in these smart contracts. You will probably never, be, that will never cross your daily life. But like, it doesn't matter. Everything is still there for you to just experience. So it's actually pretty cool for you as well, because there's a lot of stuff that I never shared because it doesn't have a place on the radio, it doesn't have a place on streaming platforms, and it doesn't have a place on a festival or in a club, but it has a place with this one collector who appreciates it. And that one collector is making this possible for you to see all of these things from all of these artists that are going to be out there. And he's basically he's paying it for you, man. Like, yeah, this is dope, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, enjoy it. NFT, let's go.
Exactly, right? Yeah, no, I love that. And sometimes too, when people talk about, oh, like we're gonna put this behind the firewall and use the NFT to access it, I was like, to me, it's like sometimes I understand it. There's in certain cases where it's worth it, but in a lot of cases, especially with music, right, and even like pictures, where the value accrual comes from from the meme, right? From everybody hearing it, right? Like, your biggest hit is worth something because everybody hears it, right? Because everybody knows what it is. If nobody got the chance to hear it, it wouldn't be worth much, right?
No, that's exactly it. Nobody wants to buy the music rights, NFT of music rights of a certain song if nobody listens to it. Mm-hmm. You are giving it value, so you are actually, without knowing this, you are part of this, right? So, and I think that's the misunderstanding, and it just makes me it makes me aggressive and it makes me chuckle. I'm like, you don't get it. If you're my fan, like, please, like, come with me on this journey. This has been very liberating for me, and it's it's giving me a shred of happiness. Like, I would have hoped you would be happy for me. You've been following my journey for all these years, and here I am. Just sort of getting embraced by a whole new community and making new friends. And I think what it is that they're afraid. It's like when you have a best friend, growing up, mm-hmm. and then that friend gets a new friend. Like, mm-hmm. Oh shit, he's gonna forget about me. Like, that's never gonna happen. I'm never forget about them. They're my world. Like, that's why I worked, like, the whole pandemic. I worked on my album. I made like 10 music videos. Like, this is always, it's just that I work 19 hours a day. So in those other hours, please allow me to have, a hobby or like to enjoy myself on other fronts or like, but it's a bonus, right?
Right.
It's not never going to be a threat to you or to who Don Diablo was. It's going to enrich. And I think that's the case for every artist out there that and love, whether it's a photographer, a sculptor, a painter, or whatever, a digital creator. It's always just going to be about enriching. And I think none of the creators out there are like, yes, now I'm just going to completely forget about all of my fans and
right.
I'm going to disabandon you, like stab you in the back. And I think for me, it's the real opposite. It's like now as I get a shred of happiness and maybe some acceptance for myself, this will maybe allow me to do other things for you guys, and this will be a good thing for everyone, but collectors happy, artists is happy and fans should be happy. And I think, that's the one thing that sometimes there's a little bit of a discrepancy because, it's not really, I think most music artists, they live on Instagram, right? And most NFT artists live on Twitter, and there's much more talk and understanding there. And I think, I see a lot of artists out there struggling, posting stuff up on their socials and people not understanding. Mm-hmm. I think I have been lucky because I have an intelligent fan base, thank God. And they do understand it and they've been very supportive, and that you actually sometimes make me very emotional because they're literally no idea what it is. They're like, cool, we love us, Donnie. Like we're rooting for you. And I'm like, oh man, like, that's great because I see other artists or people just getting slashed, like, for chasing, something exciting and innovative. And I think people need to think about what they say to artists, before putting it out there. I think,
right.
We are very emotional creatures, so.
Yeah.
But I've been very, very lucky. So I think, I'm very grateful for that.
Well, yeah, I'm grateful for you coming on the podcast and being so open with us and sharing your story, and I really appreciate it. It's really awesome. So yeah,
likewise, man. Likewise. It's been awesome, and I think it's 2:30 at night, so we did it, man. I stayed awake.
yeah. Again, thank you, and I'll let you go with that. When is the auction taking place at Sotheby's?
It will definitely still take place this year.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm just finalizing some of the. So when you do an auction with Sotheby's and it's such a big physical piece, everything needs to get inspected. There's a lot actually. It's quite an interesting transport situation as well. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot that still needs to be looked at, and but everything is kind of ready physically, digitally, and I'm very excited to fully, and I'll post something on my socials to kind of fully unveil the piece. And as said, it's aimed to go on public display, so it will be out there for people to watch and experience.
Okay, awesome.
To go inside of. So
awesome. I'm going to be looking forward to that.
Yes, sir. Well, you're coming to Amsterdam, right?
Yeah, so. No, I want to come. I'll try to come out maybe next week or the week afterwards. I definitely want to experience it. It looks incredible, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, thank you for taking the time.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for everyone listening in, by the way. Shout out to everyone. I see a lot of good people out there. So appreciate it.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Don. Thanks for your time, and we'll chat again soon.
Yes, sir. Have a good day.
All right, thanks. You too.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.